Biocon, and this is a very momentous press conference for us because it is about heralding a very big effort which has allowed Biocon to basically commercialize a very, very important drug which I hope will make global impact in the not too distant future. I'd like to start by basically talking about autoimmune diseases which are on the rise globally. Autoimmune disease, this whole segment of autoimmune diseases actually includes over 100 diseases that are categorized as those arising from various malfunctions of the immune system, which really then gets the body to basically treat its own cells as foreign cells and then basically gets the immune system to attack it. That's, in a very lay person speak, what autoimmunity is all about. So the immune system that we use to fight diseases or basically bacteria, viruses and other foreign invaders in the bodies, in the body, our immune system is basically a defense mechanism to get rid of these foreign invaders. But when the defense system starts interpreting its own body cells as invading cells, that's what then causes autoimmunity. And amongst these 100 diseases, it's very interesting to note that only 10 of these or 10% of these autoimmune diseases have currently available therapies to deal with them. So I think this is what makes it very challenging. And that is why there is a huge amount of research efforts to see how do we basically combat more and more autoimmune diseases. And just to give you an example of what are these autoimmune diseases, today we are talking about psoriasis, which is one such disease in the segment of autoimmunity. But many others like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis, Sjogren's disease, even diabetes is an autoimmune disease. And many others are in this category of autoimmune diseases. So I think this is such an important segment, and many people suffer from it. And as I just mentioned, it is really about an imbalance in the immune system that triggers autoimmunity. Now, ALZUMAB, which is this very important drug for Biocon, is a novel biologic which we believe will address a number of unmet needs in this autoimmune disease segment. This was a drug that we actually started developing almost 10 years ago. And this is one drug which, through painstaking research efforts, is now seeing fruition and is being now launched in the country, which for us is a very proud moment. Now, we would like to describe ALZUMAB or itolizumab, as the generic name has been given to this very important anti-CD6 antibody. It is a first-in-class novel biologic for psoriasis. There is no other anti-CD6 antibody that has been developed as a therapeutic antibody to combat autoimmunity. So it is a first-in-class novel biologic globally. We believe that ALZUMAB will change the treatment paradigm for psoriasis in India. And as many of you know, psoriasis actually affects almost 1 to 2% of the population in most parts of the world, and India is no exception. What I'd really like to share with you is the research efforts that have gone into making this drug a reality. And I think this is a proud moment for all of us in Biocon, because it is a recognition of the expertise and the growing skills that we are building in innovation-led, discovery-led R&D. And I think this is something which we believe is a huge milestone, not just for Biocon but for the country as well, because this is about bringing a novel biologic to India, to Indian patients, and it is about taking path-breaking research from India to other parts of the world. Now, as I mentioned earlier, ALZUMAB stroke itolizumab is the world's first anti-CD6 monoclonal antibody to complete its lab-to-market journey. There have been other efforts to develop CD6 by other large companies. But as we have seen through a lot of the research findings, most of these anti-CD6 antibodies were actually looking at other epitope targets and domain targets in the antigens, and we seem to have actually developed that antibody that has actually managed to almost bullseye look at the right domain, and that is why we have seen the kind of efficacy and safety profile that other anti-CD6 antibodies have not been able to attain. We have a very unique mechanism of action. And what is very interesting is that I like to call it serendipity, because in all honesty, when we started developing this particular antibody, we had not actually understood the Th17 pathway. We had understood very well the Th1 pathway, and we were actually focusing all our efforts of developing a mechanism of action story around Th1. But it is now very apparent that itolizumab stroke ALZUMAB works very effectively in the Th17 pathway. And this is now the most hotly pursued pathway by all large pharma companies. Today, if you look at the number of IL-17s that are being developed, which is really about the cytokines that come out of this pathway, it will tell you how important this pathway is. It is clearly understood today that many autoimmune indications, from psoriasis to rheumatoid arthritis to multiple sclerosis, all find base in the Th17 pathway. And what is very important for us is that unlike most of the other efforts where they are looking at just sequestering the cytokines that come out of this pathway, which is IL-17 and others, we are actually modulating and preventing the proliferation of Th17 into the cytokines. So therefore, our mechanism of action is giving us much greater and superior efficacy and safety compared to other drugs. We have over time, expended a lot of efforts into understanding this molecule, developing this molecule, and studying its preclinical efficacy points, safety endpoints, and then through the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trials, which have taken us all this time. It's taken us 10 years to get to where we are today. And I want everyone here to understand that this is what novel biologics or novel programs are all about. It is a very long process. We have actually answered a number of very, very important questions about this particular molecule and how it works. Now, what this particular slide shows you is that we actually have not only a first-in-class antibody, but a best-in-class antibody. And why do we say that? Because if you look at this slide, the remission timelines that we are seeing with ALZUMAB is spectacular. Most therapies are seeing relapse within 5 to 20 weeks at best. And what we are seeing in itolizumab is it is greater than 24 weeks. This itself tells you that the drug is a very, very important drug. And what I'd like to also share with you is that based on PASI 50 scores, actually itolizumab compares with all these other biologics in terms of its efficacy. Now this, I just don't want to get too much into the science of itolizumab or ALZUMAB, but like I explained, the Th17 cells have a very critical role to play in autoimmunity, and our monoclonal antibody ALZUMAB stroke itolizumab actually has a very, very significant role to play in this Th17 proliferation pathway. And because our drug works upstream, we are seeing a much longer lasting effect of this drug compared to most other drugs that are in this pathway that work downstream in a sequestering manner. So it's basically, to give you an analogy, if you have a leaky tap, you can have a bucket that keeps collecting the leak, but until you fix the valve, the tap will keep leaking. So if you have a sponge just sort of sponging off the liquid dripping out of the tap, you will see that the tap can be, prevented from spilling onto the floor. But the moment you stop sponging it off, again it's going to start leaking. Our drug actually fixes the valve that is responsible for the leak. So to give you, it's that kind of an analogy, where our drug actually is a co-stimulatory factor. The CD6 is a co-stimulatory factor that actually stimulates Th17 to produce all the cytokines downstream, which causes the autoimmunity. And once you suppress that co-stimulatory CD6, CD6 is not able to then stimulate Th17 to produce the cytokines, which is what then gives you the efficacy and the greater and superior remission. Now here is a picture of one patient who actually participated in our phase 2 trial for this particular drug. And what was important to note here is that whilst this patient actually, got huge response to this particular drug, what is even more, astounding is the fact that 4.5 years after being dosed with this drug, this woman is still disease-free. And she is someone who has greatly benefited from this drug. And this is what gives us a lot of promise that we are almost rebooting the immune system and correcting the immune system in terms of its autoimmunity. Many other patients who have taken part in the trial, you can see from this particular slide. Here is a case of a young man suffering from psoriasis for 6 years, who had really a bad case of psoriasis. Post an 8-week treatment with ALZUMAB, was free from psoriasis. And now, even 6 months after the follow-up examination, this patient is still in remission. So this is what is very important about this drug. In most other biologics, you see remission within 8 weeks, 10 weeks. So this is really astounding data that we are seeing in terms of this drug. In terms of our strategic focus on biologics, we are very committed as a company to novel programs in the area of oncology and immunology, and certainly this belief that we have the need, the necessity and the capability to keep investing in innovation is paying off for us. We have already delivered one novel biologic, Biomab EGFR, into the market in 2006 for head and neck cancer, and over 5,500 patients have benefited from this treatment. And today we bring to the Indian patients a second novel biologic, ALZUMAB, our anti-CD6 antibody, which has been indicated for psoriasis as the first indication, but we are now soon going to start developing this drug for other indications: rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, lupus, and multiple sclerosis. Some of it we will do on our own in India, but other trials will be done in partnership with companies who are obviously very interested to partner us in this very exciting molecule. As I mentioned, this is a breakthrough innovation, and I'm very proud that this is a breakthrough innovation that has the potential of making huge global impact. There is a lot of interest being evinced to partner us in this drug, and it is only a matter of time that I will be able to also share with you a successful partnering discussion outcome. As I mentioned, it is not easy to develop novel biologics, and we remain committed to our research and innovation effort. This certainly lends credibility to our innovation model. And I'd just like to mention here that we pride ourselves in the fact that we are one of the highest spenders in R&D in the country. We spend over 10% of our revenues in R&D, and I think this is something which we will always be committed to, because we do believe that it is only through innovation and IP creation that we will build enduring value for our stakeholders. So I will end there, and I will now request my colleague Shukrit to basically take over and give you some more information on this drug. Thank you.